Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are joining me from. I am so glad that you are joining me here to talk about garlic, ajo, scordo, all sorts of different things. It is an ingredient used and loved the world over in just about every cuisine, well, all those that I've ever seen. And well, hey, it's a ubiquitous ingredient and yet one that has so much nuance to it, and that's what we are here to discuss today. Hey, I really appreciate you being part of the Ruby family and having me a part of that family. My name is Barton Sieber. I'm a chef, author, proud husband, father, and resident here on the jagged, ragged, delicious coast of Maine, where I am joining you from today on an absolutely gorgeous September afternoon. Any of you who have ever been to Maine know that this is an incredible place, but September, October, November is when all that it is just through alchemical means just becomes the most wonderful, incredible place. I mean, that is autumn the world over, really. But yeah, this is truly a special place in the world, and I am so grateful to be here. And those of you who have joined me here before know that, well, I like to start off each of these episodes or events by talking about gratitude because, well, food and feeding people is an act of love. It is an act of kindness. And the greatest ingredient in food is our gratitude for that, and for the ingredients we are able to use, and for those who we are able to feed. And so I hope that you can take a minute to just consider what you're grateful for before you start cooking, whenever it is. But something that I am grateful for today, a little bit outside of food, is, wow, in Maine, the nights are getting cool. And when we wake up in the morning, it's about 45 degrees or so, and we got all the windows open. The whole house is wide open. And let me tell you how good a 45-degree morning is for sleeping. You know, you snuggle up next to your wife and a blanket over you and just comfortable and look out the window and think that life is an accomplishment because, well, it is. And I hope that you feel the same. But as I said, I hope that you will take a moment to reflect on something that you are grateful for, and especially when we are cooking. So with that, we're going to dive into this very big and yet also very sort of small and acute topic of garlic. So over here on the event page, you'll see just there to the right of me on the screen, you're going to see that question queue. Please, at the top of that queue, just type in any question that you have. It does not have to be related to garlic. Anything you want to talk about, let's get to, and I hope that I will get to them. And if there are any questions that are already asked that are of particular interest to you, well, just go ahead and click that little heart icon right next to it, and that will vote it up in the queue to make sure that I get to it. So I've got a couple of things that we're going to discuss. I'll just sort of walk through different forms of garlic, market forms, some of my very strong opinions on those, this very strong ingredient. We'll talk about different uses for it, talk through a couple of different recipes. I'm going to make an aioli for you today, just a quick mayonnaise, talk about how garlic integrates into that. But we can talk about pairings. We can talk about growing garlic, which I do here on my farm. I grow about 1,200 heads of garlic, so I have a good bit of experience with it. I won't consider myself an expert, but we can get into that too. But really, no question is out of bounds. And again, thanks for joining me. All right, so with that, let's talk about just what garlic is, right? Well, garlic is a bulb. It is an allium. It is related to onions and chives, green onions, all of those things. And, well, it has those very same and similar characteristics to it, this sulfurous richness to it, this alicum bite to it, which is that peppery, stingy, sort of spicy back palate bite that we so love. Obviously, it has this incredible big aroma to it. And oftentimes we think garlic is, well, it's just garlic, right? I mean, that's what recipes call for, garlic. And you throw it in there without thinking necessarily of it. But garlic, much like tomatoes or wine or, well, everything else in this world, has a whole lot of diversity to it. That diversity has largely been hidden behind industrial scale agriculture and sort of the modern food system. But garlic and all of its diversity is alive and well in farmers markets and on home farms like mine own. So the two big categories of garlic that should be discussed, well, first is that we have soft neck garlic, which is what is almost always what is found in grocery stores. And then you have hard neck garlic. And the difference between these two is, well, soft-neck garlic typically grows very well in warm climates. Hardneck garlic is, well, from colder climates. And garlic, as I understand it, originated in the Caucasus Mountains, in the areas like the Republic of Georgia, around there. And this is what I grow in my place on my farm is the hardneck. But the difference there in the field is that, well, a soft-neck garlic has that soft, long stalk, and garlic is a beautiful plant. It is absolutely beautiful. You plant the clove several inches down in the ground, and out from it springs this large stalk that has these broad leaves which grow out of it vertically. And those, on the soft-neck garlic, those stay very, soft and pliable, and they are able to be braided together. So if you take a look at Pinterest or anything like that, or you've seen those beautiful pictures of like garlic braided together, oh, it's wonderful. And it's sort of that Pinterest syndrome when it's like, I'm never going to live up to that. It's gorgeous. But that is the soft neck garlic. The hard neck garlic grows in exactly the same way, except in the center of it, it has a hard central stalk that is also known as the scape. And when that grows up and it grows out, it forms this long, sort of twirling, swirling stalk that then ends up in the flower at the end of the season. Now, most farmers will cut that scape off during its growing so that the plant basically puts all of its energy into growing the bulb rather than into growing the flower and reproducing itself through that means. So I, too, will cut the scapes off, and usually that happens in basically the beginning of July or so, and make garlic scape pesto out of that. They're very much like green onions in that way, and cut them up, saute them, throw them into whatever you want to, make pestos out of them and save them through the year. I typically put them on the grill. And since I grow 1,200 heads of garlic, we have a whole lot of garlic scapes. I also sell them off the front lawn in our little farm stand, and I trade them with neighbors for lobsters that they catch on their boats, etc. Yeah, life is delicious here in Maine. But one of my very favorite sort of culinary rituals of the year is that the scapes come in around the same time that swordfish swim into the waters here in the North Atlantic as they migrate up for the summer. And so one of the first great meals we have out on the grill every year is a nice big piece of swordfish. Invite a whole bunch of friends over and do up this big pile of grilled garlic scapes as well. So anyway, the difference, let's talk about the differences from a culinary perspective between these two. So soft neck garlic tends to be, as I said, what's in the grocery stores for the reasons that, well, it grows in warm weather climates, meaning things in warm weather climates tend to grow a lot faster too. So this is quicker to market. It typically is planted around December or so and harvested in May or June, just 5 or 6 months. These varieties also have many, many cloves to them. Let's cut this in half. Well, they have many, many cloves, some of them 12 or 17 cloves, somewhere in there. But you take a look at that. I mean, that's crazy, right? Whoa, that's a lot of cloves. And those in the inside there, those are going to take quite a lot of effort to peel. Those ones on the outside are nice and easily usable. The smell on this is very pungent. It's potent. It's that sweet, spicy, garlicky, sulfury aroma that we love. But one of the things that makes this a good keeper, meaning one of the reasons it makes it good for supermarkets, is that it has so many layers of this papery peel to it, right? And what do those layers of papery peel do? Well, they protect the garlic cloves inside from dehydration. They help keep that moisture in and thus just sort of prolong the shelf life of them. So all of that papery peel obviously just gets peeled off when you go to use it. But that's one of the reasons why soft neck garlic is really what you see in grocery stores. There's not a whole lot of variety to the garlic that I find in grocery stores, meaning it's all kind of the same, sweet, spicy, rather pungent. And throughout the year, you're going to get basically the same garlic of different age. Now, the majority of garlic in America that's sold comes from either China or from Gilroy, California, the garlic capital of the world, they call themselves, but certainly of the country. And Yeah. So as garlic ages, typically it's got about maybe a 5 to 8 month shelf life on it if stored in a cool environment. Typically I store it down in a root cellar where there's moderate humidity, but also nice 50 degrees or so to keep it from gaining these little green stalks which grow out of it. That is the reproductive phase when it starts growing the new plant. So the more aged the garlic is, the more dehydrated it's going to be, the more pungent it is going to be, and just all of those chemicals that are inside of it, well, they age and go through processes as well. So you want to use fresh garlic, as fresh as possible. So that is the soft-neck garlic. And on the hard-neck garlic, this is a variety that I absolutely adore. This is called Music, and it's named after a Canadian farmer, Al Music, from what I understand, who kind of found this variety or cultivated it and gave it its forms throughout the years. Hardneck garlic is going to have that hard center to it. It is also going to typically have larger bulbs. This is another variety of which I grow a lot. This is called German Hardy. This is a porcelain varietal. And when you cut these in half, let's do the music one. When you cut these, you have that hard center. You get down through, and you'll see that you have a lot fewer layers of that papery skin. As on the soft neck garlic, we had 6 or 7, 8 maybe. This one has 2 or 3. One of the things that helps reduce the shelf life in that it promotes evaporation, but it also makes it very easy to peel because there's less to peel, right? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. The flavor of hardneck garlic tends to me it's just a lot more nuanced. It's a lot more sophisticated, elegant, if you will. There's better balance to it in terms of that spicy to sweet to aroma to pungency. So I like hardneck garlic a lot more. And you can find this, go to a farmer's market, seek it out. And I cannot tell you, entreat you enough that if you have the opportunity to, please grow garlic yourself. It is so rewarding. It is so wonderful. It is so easy as well to grow garlic that it really takes this ubiquitous ingredient that you just think of as, oh, it's garlic, whatever, and turns it into really, to me, one of the most charismatic and wonderful parts of any dish that I put it into. So those are some differences between hardneck and softneck. Let's talk about gardening a little bit. How to plant. Because I know that we got a couple of questions about that. So I'll try and address some of those. But the way that I plant garlic is in late October or so. I will put it into the ground. You separate the cloves out, leaving the skin on. So you just take one little clove like that, and you drop it down about 5 or so inches. Depends really on where you are and what style you want to in farming. But I put it down about 5 inches or so on the ground, tip side up, and I put them about 6 inches away from each other, and I stagger them across little rows. I do raised bed farming here, and I will fill about 6 12 by 4 foot beds with four rows each of this garlic, staggered in double rows there. And come about late June, July, we have to cut the scapes. But and then harvest in early August or so. And harvesting garlic is so rewarding. It's so much fun. You dig down and just loosen the dirt and then pull up this beautiful bulb. And it's like picking carrots or something. It's just magic comes out of the ground. And garlic, when first picked, oh my God, it is so beautiful. It is so wonderful. It is so nuanced. That spicy, it's just the most balanced and elegant it will ever be. And I really, really relish and look forward to using garlic straight out of the ground every season. But then most of the garlic I cure for about 3 to 4 weeks. I hang it in the rafters of my barn, try to keep it labeled so that I can keep all the varieties that I grow separate. And then I take it down. And once it's dried and the skins have sort of adhered down, trim off the root end, trim off with about 1 inch to go of the stalk end. All of that goes out into the woods. I don't compost it because just various diseases and things that can build up in soil, and you don't want. I don't have the compost capacity to super hot compost it to the point where I can eradicate any pathogens in there. So I just throw all that out into the woods, and then I have boxes and boxes and bushels of garlic, which I sell, I trade for fish, and we use about a whole head per day. So that is how to grow garlic. The other thing that I really love about growing garlic is that any of you who are gardeners know the intoxicating effect of spring and of optimism and of a seed catalog. And when it comes to spring, after a long winter in Maine, what do you want to do? You just want to go overboard and plant and dream about the future and all the right, wonderful fresh vegetables and fruits you're going to have, and you just want to overdo it. But you can't, because 6 of my beds are already full of garlic that were planted in October, been working their magic, and sort of by maybe late March or so are just sprouting out of the ground soon to fill the whole bed in the garden with this lush bouquet of leaves. So it actually, garlic is not only wonderful because of what it is, but it also helps to temper the optimism and the overdo-itness of spring that gardeners fall victim to so often. So another reason why I love garlic. All right. So let's get to a couple of questions here, and then I'm going to start talking about market forms of garlic, and then we'll get into some of the culinary uses of. So Karen, hey friend, you're asking, how should garlic be stored? Well, garlic should be stored at a moderate temperature, 50 degrees or 40 to 50 degrees or so is typically how I do it, in moderate humidity. Typically a basement will work well, or just a dark box in a cool area. Oftentimes I've seen people bury them in sawdust or in newspaper to help manage the humidity to them. You can keep garlic in the refrigerator. Certainly that reduces its shelf life a little bit. But also part of the answer to your question is also questioning your question a little bit, which is to ask why you have so much garlic to store. If you are growing some and have it in bulk, store it the way that I did. But otherwise, you know what? If you're just buying it at the store, buy it as you need it. And really, I just leave it on the countertop. As soon as I break into a clove or a bulb or so, I'm going to use it up within the next day or so. I mean, I know that probably within the day, so I'll just leave it on the counter. And so I would recommend that if you're shopping once a week or so at a traditional store, let the experts do the storing for you, right? I mean, they know exactly how to store the garlic. It's in their best interest to do it the right way. So just buy it as need be. If your cuisine, you're cooking, you only use 1, maybe 2 cloves of garlic at a time, and so 1 head might last you 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks even. In that case, I would recommend peeling it and then just throwing it all into the refrigerator in an airtight container. And you're going to get 2 to 3 weeks out of it there in that way. If you leave it on the counter for 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to lose a lot of its nuance, a lot of its flavor. Are you going to lose some in the refrigerator? Yes, absolutely. But is it still going to be garlic? Is it still going to add wonderful flavor and richness to your dish? Yes, absolutely. So there you go. I hope that helps. Now, one thing that I do not do is store garlic in the freezer. And the reason for that is because my freezer is also populated with other ingredients, like blueberries and popsicles and things that my wife really gets mad about them tasting like garlic or fish. So there's no way around not making everything else in your freezer taste like garlic if you put garlic in there. So I don't put it in there. The refrigerator is not so much of a concern, just airtight container. But yeah, I don't freeze the garlic. So there you go. All right, thanks, Karen. I appreciate it. From Teresa, a question about after roasting garlic. After roasting garlic, how long will it last in the fridge, and what's the best way to store it? So a couple of different ways to do that. We'll talk about roasting, and I've got a bunch of different cloves that I've roasted in a couple of different ways that we can speak of. So roasted garlic, the same thing. Just throw it in an airtight container into the refrigerator. And it will probably last for 2 to 3 weeks or so without losing much of its nuance. It will get a little more potent, a little more funky to it, but it will still have that sweet, soft, seductive flavor to it and be worth using. Another way to do it is to then cap it with oil to help prevent oxidation from air contact. And in that way, you'll extend the shelf life maybe by a couple of weeks or so. You get a month and a half out of it. You'll also get wonderful garlic scented flavored oil. That is really wonderful. So, all right, that's how to store roasted garlic. How long does it last? And Marina, yeah, can I freeze garlic? And if so, how long? Yes, you can freeze it. I don't recommend it for the reasons I gave. Awesome. Okay, let's talk about market forms of garlic. So we've talked about the fresh garlic. Fresh garlic comes as whole heads, but also it is often, you can find it in peeled form, a convenience product. And the peeled garlic is great. It does save time, admittedly. You're also sort of jump-started some of the aging process by taking off the skins. So it's a little bit less of a shelf life, but honestly, if you just need the convenience of it and reaching into your fridge and grabbing a couple cloves and smashing them up and going with it, great, absolutely. So it's a fine product. It's the same product that the soft neck garlic that you're going to find, and let the machine do the work for you. Sure, absolutely. Other forms of garlic, you're looking at the jarred garlic, like the minced in water. Just don't use it. It's just not worth it. It's not a good product. I understand why it existed, and really when I was coming up as a child, I remember when fresh whole clove garlic kind of made a debut, and it was kind of new and weird and special. And in the traditional grocery stores. Before then, it was sort of an Italian specialty ingredient in a lot of ways. And so it really wasn't just the jarred garlic stored, minced, stored in water. And if you look at this garlic, what color is it, right? It's like off-white, barely yellow. What's the color of the stuff in the jars in the water? It's like deep tan, dark brown. Oh, man. Good. It's just not, it's not worth eating. It's not worth using. The gastrointestinal distress that it causes, the relationship stress that it causes, it ruins a dish, really. It's not worth using. Another market form that you sometimes find that just is not worth using is the garlic paste in those tubes, though it is not nearly as oxidated as what's in the jars. It's so easy to make garlic paste that I just recommend using the fresh. And then garlic juice is another market form. No. Should be soundly rejected by anyone who has taste, is the way that I look at that. Other market forms, you're going to find garlic powder. And garlic powders can be just sort of mass market, as this one is here. And you know what? I like garlic powder. I have it in my kitchen, and I use it. I use it for marinades when I want that sort of more barbecue. I just inhaled a bunch of garlic powder. Okay, so don't do that. Oh, man. Don't do lines of garlic powder, for sure. So I like that sort of barbecue rub flavor sometimes. If I'm making a salad dressing with sort of a ranch style or like a cheese dip or something like that I want just a little bit of garlic flavor but not that pungent spiciness to it, garlic powder is really great. It's a great ingredient, along with onion powder. That's another ingredient that I really like. Do I think it is a highbrow, high-class ingredient? Would I dust my foie gras and caviar with it? Absolutely not. But it is what it is, and it performs a really great service. There are also sort of smaller scale artisan producers of garlic, and these are folks that are growing different varietals of garlic, and this is just going to be a step above this. It's going to have more nuance. It's going to have more flavor. Being very careful now. And it's just going to be, I think, a more interesting product, also a lot more strength to it. So those are very good products. Another product that is on the market that I've seen recently and has come about is black garlic, which is garlic that has been aged at a specific temperature for a long time, and through the Maillard's reaction, or sort of the caramelization or aging of sugars and proteins, it takes on this beautiful, deep, I mean, black, jet black, midnight black hue to it. And I actually make my own black garlic. I use a food dehydrator that I set to about 130 degrees. And then I wrap the garlic, and I don't want to dehydrate the garlic. I'm not making garlic powder, but that's why I wrap them several times over in aluminum foil, first in plastic wrap. Garlic powder's still getting me. First in plastic wrap, and then in aluminum foil. And this is a product that it may or may not be done quite yet. Oh my gosh, but the smell, the aroma of this is completely different. It's not roasted garlic. It's not fresh garlic, and it's just something in between, and it's incredible. And it's typically often sort of found or is introduced to me through Chinese cuisine. But that's the beautiful, rich, deep, golden caramel color. So this is not ready yet. And when I say black, I mean as black as the countertop behind me. I mean, it just smells. It smells like caramel. I mean, it looks sweet, doesn't it? Just check it out. I mean, it's incredible color, and see all that moisture is still in there. So I'm going to give these another week or so. But this just mashed up with some fresh herbs, a little bit of vinegar, some oil, just as a sauce or a marinade, vinaigrette, is incredible. So those are market forms of garlic. So I'm going to take now another couple questions, and then we're going to get sort of into the culinary uses of garlic and various ways that I prepare it, think about it, and use it from raw all the way up to roasted. Yeah, then we'll give a couple of tips and techniques and all that. So there you go. It's from Tracy. Hi, friend. I'd love to know more about the black garlic too. How to make it, best garlic to use for it, etc. Okay. So just went through how I make it. There are also some black garlic machines that are available on marketplaces. You know what? I'm going to excuse myself for just 1 second because our neighbors are having a tree taken down. They've just fired up the chainsaws. I don't know if it's bothering you, but I'm just going to close the doors real quick. I'll be right back. There's always something, right? Okay, so back to the black garlic machines. They make some machines which are basically like rice cookers that sit on the countertop that can make several cloves at a time, maybe a couple layers. And those are just controlled environments where you can control the humidity and the heat. I've seen several recipes online for black garlic that are made in rice cookers themselves. Just be prepared for your entire house to smell very potently, and for anything you ever make in that rice cooker thereafter to smell and taste potently like black garlic, which is a nice thing. The varieties to use for black garlic, I like the hardneck garlic for just about everything, especially because the cloves are so much larger. Again, sort of looking at those size of those cloves versus that. This is the hardneck garlic, the farmer's market garlic, if you will. As garlic ages into black garlic, it obviously dehydrates quite a bit, and it's going to shrink down. So if you start with a larger clove, you're going to end up with a larger black garlic clove. So find some very fresh garlic that has a high moisture content to it. So the freshest you can find, go to the farmer's markets. But really, any kind of garlic is going to work for this and yield you great results. So there you go. From Deborah, again, on the black garlic. How long do you dehydrate black garlic for? So it's not dehydration, Deborah. It's really that I'm using that controlled heat environment. So that's why I wrapped it once in plastic, twice in aluminum foil to prevent that moisture loss, but I can set the food dehydrator at 130 and leave it for 3 weeks, which is about how long it takes me. Well, it might take a 4th week, as you see with these cloves here. But that's I've seen the black garlic makers, the machines. I've seen them recommend about 5 days. So it's all about sort of the temperature you do it at, which can range from 120 up to about 170. You know what? I'm just experimenting with this. This is only my 3rd year of making black garlic, and I love to do it different ways. And yeah, so there you go. Any other questions on the black garlic? How long to leave the black garlic on in the dehydrator? So again, about 3 to 4 weeks or so. All right. So thanks for the questions on the black garlic. And I'm sorry I don't have black garlic to show you, but there you go. So another question from Adela. How do you identify the 2 types of garlic when shopping, know which type is which? So very often, Adela, you're not going to find both next to each other. Really, if you're in the common grocery store in America, you are going to find the soft neck garlic, which again is great quality product. And again, it's earned its place there because it is so quick to grow, for only 5-6 months, as opposed to a 9 to 11 month process, a 9 to 10 month process in northern climates for the hardneck. But also because of that storage capacity, the larger number of paper leaves on the outside that help protect it from moisture loss. So that's what you're going to find there. But hardneck garlic, let's see. So if I can get very close. So there's the soft neck garlic, and you can see that, well, there's no real core to the center of that stalk there, as opposed to this. This is the hardneck garlic, and this is going to have that very identifiable, very obvious hard core that runs up. So that's one way to tell. The other way to tell is if you are in a place that's going to have multiple varieties of garlic, you're in a place where somebody working there is going to know about those multiple varieties of garlic. Just, good for you for having access to such a store. So, ask the people around. And certainly if you're at a farmer's market, they're going to know the difference because they're growing it and they chose to grow it for various reasons, and ask them why. So thanks. Appreciate all these questions. So let's talk about a couple of culinary uses of garlic. So raw, right? Raw garlic has a number of different ways to use it. Now, a lot of people raw garlic can be a lot. Yes, it can, but it can also be incredibly nuanced and beautiful when used in the right ways. So one of my very favorite ways to use raw garlic when making a salad dressing or anything where I just want a hint of garlic, in the same way that, perfume to me should be worn in just this fleeting, ethereal, just a whiff. It should capture your attention, not your senses. It should just be just enough to turn your head, but not turn you away from it, right? Like, you don't want raw garlic, to be that guy walking down the street with the CK1 on that you can smell from like the other side of the block, right? No one wants that much garlic in their dish or that much CK1 on their man, right? Maybe some of y'all do. Who knows? Anyway. One of the fun ways that I like to use raw garlic, and this is a sort of a French technique, especially if you've got a salad bowl that you often use. So for a dressing, you just take a clove of garlic, cut it in half, and rub it on the inside of the bowl. And then you're done. That's it. So all you've done is aromatized the bowl just a little bit. And that will come off as you're tossing the salad and mixing the vinaigrette in there, the vinegar and whatever oil you're using, and that will just very slightly, lightly, and beautifully perfume your dish. One of the other dishes that I like to use that same technique for is ceviches. If I'm mixing up ceviche, whether it's avocado and butternut squash or a vegetable one, or whether it's a traditional seafood ceviche, I want just a little bit of garlic flavor in there. I don't want to use garlic powder because it just doesn't have that freshness to it. But I want just a little bit of that spice. Same thing. I'll just rub the inside of the bowl, just a couple of rounds from a cut clove, and there you go. Same thing can be done, by the way, with ginger, fresh ginger. just 1 or 2 swipes of the bowl around is a great way to use. Another great way to use raw garlic in that same way, and this is one of just my very favorite things to eat and something I ate all the time when I lived and was cooking in Spain, just bread straight out of the oven, whether it's crusty baguette toasted in the oven, whether it's just a piece of regular old sliced multigrain bread. As soon as it comes out of the oven and it's still warm, but it has some texture on it, it's a little crunchy, take your cut clove of garlic and just rub it, brush it across a couple of times. And between the texture of the bread and the slight heat of it and that friction, you will deposit just a little tiny bit of the garlic all over the bread, very evenly spreading its aroma, its perfume, all of that beauty and nuance. And it just takes basically what is, well, it's crunchy bread, right? It's a crostini. It's good on its own, and it turns it into something very interesting. And I like that far more than garlic bread, where you take a huge amount of garlic and slather it on, and it tastes like, the bread just becomes this socially acceptable vehicle to put garlic and butter in your face. Like, is it tasty? Duh, of course it's tasty, but it's not nuanced. And if you're serving it as part of this meal that you put all this effort into, and then you just go ahead and like bash somebody's palate with the garlic bread, even though it tastes good, it sort of betrays the rest of the meal a little bit. So getting just that hint of garlic flavor by rubbing a cut clove right on toasted bread straight out of the oven is an incredible way to add that aroma. Certainly, raw garlic has its place in dishes like Caesar salad dressing, etc., where you use that raw garlic as a very specific counterpoint to richness of other ingredients. In the case of Caesar, it's the richness of the mayonnaise, of the aioli, of the anchovies, of the pepper, and of the cheese that all goes into it, bound by egg yolk. So in that way, you have a lot of richness there. And you need that counterpoint of lemon juice and the spiciness of garlic. So in that way, yeah, raw garlic, man, go for it. Throw it in there. Use it. If you're going to have garlic breath, you might as well go for it, right? I mean, if you're going to eat a Caesar salad, do it. Just go all in. Really enjoy the garlic, but use fresh garlic, something that is elegant and nuanced to begin with. The ways in which I use raw garlic, let's see. So you can mince garlic with a knife, and that is sort of the same way you would mince a shallot or an onion. Give yourself a flat side to work with. So I just happen to have a clove that was already cut in half here. Give yourself a side to work with so that it's flat on the table. Cut into it just as you would an onion. Come down across it using a very sharp knife. Though the small size of garlic might entreat you to use a smaller knife, a paring knife, etc. You know what? I think a chef's knife is still the way to go. And then, as you do, just come across. And what you end up with is very, very tiny little pieces of minced garlic. Now, I don't want that in my Caesar. I don't want the crunch of garlic and this explosion of garlic. I want the garlic to be really a minced paste. This mince, the diced, the brunoise, if you will, garlic is very useful if you're throwing it in all the way at the very end of sauteing some vegetables, whether you've got a huge platter of roasted vegetables like butternut squash and red onions and sweet potatoes coming out of the oven, and you toss it with olive oil and minced garlic like this and some shallots right at the very end. And the heat of those vegetables will heat that oil and the garlic and sort of cook it, and it'll still have some texture. That's great. That's a great use of the minced garlic. But for a puree or for a salad dressing, something like that, really a microplaner is the way to go. And the reason for this is that you get very even, textureless garlic that's going to seamlessly integrate and blend into whatever dish you are making. Let's turn on something over there for the next round. So microplaners should be very sharp. It's one of those kitchen tools that I find utterly indispensable, whether it's for citrus zest, whether it's for ginger, garlic, etc. I have 2 of them in my drawer here. One of them I allow garlic to be used on, and the other one I don't. Because if you're doing lemon zest over your raspberries as a sweet summertime treat as a dessert, leave the garlic out of it. No matter how well you wash these things, there's always going to be the ghost of some garlic, a little vesper hanging around of garlic. So I've got one that I allow garlic on, the other I don't. And with this, when you're going to microplane, you know what? I don't use the whole microplane. You know why? Because then you're going to have your garlic smashed and smeared all over the whole thing, right? If you're going to do this, just pick one little corner, one tiny little area. You go all the way down, and then you have right there, and it's easy enough to just scoop right off, right? And there is your garlic paste. Now, garlic releases its aroma and becomes sort of its fullness as soon as those cells are crushed and those oils are exposed and all those chemical processes begin. So you want to mince or grate your garlic just before using it, and no sooner than. So there you go. So if you're making a Caesar dressing or something like that, that's what I would use, would be that minced garlic. So for sauteing garlic, the way that I do that is, so you're going to have peel your cloves. And to me, depending on what's the use. So I put garlic into almost everything I do. And so let's consider something quick and easy, like zucchini. So I've got some just big chunks of zucchini and summer squash just right out of the garden. I want the garlic to integrate into this. I want it to be sort of an ingredient that I can see. So I will add the garlic at the beginning. And I will add it in larger pieces so that it has time to cook. And you don't want to brown garlic too much. A little bit is going to give it some caramelized bitter notes to it. Too much of it, it will just be all bitter. So if you've got a nice big clove like this, again, if you're trying to work with it, give yourself a break. Don't try and cut something that's round. Give it a flat edge so that it can sit stable on the cutting board. Now you can slice it across, top to bottom. However, I find it sort of more attractive to slice it lengthwise, top to bottom. And you end up with these beautiful, long sheets of garlic that, to me, give whatever dish they're integrated into really a wonderful visual appeal. So the other thing that you can do with whole cloves of garlic is, so you would do this, you would slice it or dice it if you're going to leave it in the dish and make it part of the ingredient. But as is typical often in Italian cuisines, where you want to flavor the olive oil or the whatever medium it is before you cook whatever it is, you'll take your garlic, flat side of a knife, and just crush it. You don't want to smash it. You don't want to try and kill it. It's fine. The garlic is your friend. But you just want to break it apart so that you've basically exposed some more surface area, and then you put that in the oil, oftentimes on low or medium heat, to infuse that oil, to give it that garlic aroma and flavor, the sweetness, but not really to include the garlic. Oftentimes, that garlic is then just removed, and the cook will probably just eat it, and then the dish will proceed. Another reason I use crushed garlic cloves like this is if I'm making a braise, where there's going to be a whole bunch of different ingredients in there, potatoes and carrots and whatever else. You know what? Big chunks of garlic that have been smashed down or sort of in organic shapes, they're going to cook down to these soft, beautiful little nuggets. And they'll be wonderful little bites because they will be so sweet and svelte and soft. And so I will leave those in at that point and crushed. All right. So the other ways to use garlic, and one thing that I've got going over here, and I want to show you, is boiled garlic. Now, I've just got cloves in a little bit of water just to cover, and I put them on the stove, and as soon as the water comes to a boil, I will strain it off, add another round of cold water to it, and put it back on the stove. Once it comes to a boil a second time, I will add some salt to it and boil it about 3 minutes or so. And what this does is it removes a lot of that bitterness, a lot of that spice, a lot of that potent pungency of it. And you're left with these soft, sweet, nutty cloves that can seamlessly integrate into things. And that's the aioli that I'm going to be making today, is that you're actually using the garlic as part of the binder. And in this way, instead of using just a little tiny bit of mince to flavor your aioli or whatever it is you're doing, I'm actually going to use like 15 cloves of garlic. But actually, given the time we have, I'm not sure we're going to get to use that because I'd have to cool it down. So there you go. That's boiled garlic. Boiled garlic can be smashed and used raw in salads and vinaigrettes, in marinades, etc. It can be used to smear on bread, mixed with butter and made into a compound butter like a sauce to just melt over broiled oysters or whatever protein you're doing, grilled tofu, etc. Just a really wonderful, again, svelte, soft ingredient. All right, so let's talk about roasting garlic now. In my trusty toaster oven, any of you who joined me before know that I love me my toaster oven. I've had this dish. I've been roasting it in there about 270 degrees or so for about an hour and a half. I turned it off a while ago. So I have 4 different varieties of garlic in here. This is music, this is Spanish red, this is German extra hardy, and this is a variety called Phillips. Now what I did is in this little cazuela or this little cocotte, I added just a little bit of water, and that helps to kind of cook the garlic, steam it, before it starts to caramelize. And in this way, I found that you get a more even doneness throughout. And I'm talking just a ½ centimeter of water or so, just a couple of tablespoons. And then a little bit of oil over the top. And what you get is this, oh, it's so wonderful, the smell of this, and some of the garlic juices ooze out of the bottom and caramelize down at the bottom. And that's what you're looking for. You don't want anything to be burned, but you want a low, slow, soft roast to it. And when garlic is roasted properly, you're going to have a hard time cutting it because it should be soft. But what you get are these cloves that are super soft, paste that come right out of the skins. Oh yeah, that is tasty. And the best way to use roasted garlic to me is to just cut it in half as best you can, and then just push out. And you get that wonderful paste of that garlic. Just discard any tiny little bits of skin you get, but really it's very easy to extract just that paste of the garlic. It's a bit messy. Yeah, it's okay. Because just like making cupcakes or icing a cake, whatever you're going to do, yeah, you get to lick the bowl and the whisk and your fingers afterwards, and it's a good thing. So enjoy it, right? We're doing the work of cooking, putting in the love. Let's give ourselves some self-love and eat the roasted garlic off our fingers. So there you go. So different varieties, and I don't want to get into this too much. There's some great resources out there. Cook's Illustrated actually has a great garlic guide to the different species, or the different varieties, I should say, and what they're like. But some varieties are better for roasting. They're going to give you more sweetness. Other varieties are going to yield you sort of a lingering spicy result. Some of them are going to just have more garlic presence and others less. So I'm not too much of a stickler about that. I tend to go with the German, the porcelain varieties for the for roasting, because they do have that sweetness that I'm looking for. But there you go. So last things I'm going to talk about is, because we're getting on in time here, confit garlic, which is another way to roast garlic, basically. And that is to take peeled cloves and to put them in oil. And I use a good bit of oil here. So I've got about 2½ cups of olive oil and about 20 cloves or so of garlic. And this took about 2 hours on the stove. And I've got a little, put it on the very lowest heat I possibly could. And you don't want it to simmer. You want it to just bloop, bloop. That was blooping. That's a technical term and illustration I just gave you of a very, very slow oil bubble. But what you want at the end of this is just very, very silken soft, yields with just the smallest bit of pressure, completely silken in texture, completely broken down, caramelized and brown all the way through, not crusted, not crisp, not fried, confit. really, is what this is, a very low, slow cook. It can't take too long. You can get it wrong if you do it too high. You can't do it too low. It'll take a while, sure, but I recommend absolute lowest temperature. Now, I will put a glug of sherry vinegar in this, a bay leaf, all of the oil and everything. I'll put it in a ball jar, and I'll put it in the fridge, and this will last me about 3 months, or it will last about 3 months, but what I'll do is I'll just constantly go in there. I'll just grab a spoonful of the oil, 1 clove of the garlic, and just throw it into a pan to start my vegetables, use it to drizzle over already cooked vegetables, grilled items, etc., etc. Talk about an easy sauce, and wow, I mean, also my house smells so good. Like, my house smells really, really good right now. So this is one of those great little things you can make, not only make your life easier, but to have fun as a cook. So the last form that I'll talk about is smoked garlic, and this can be done by just hot smoking over on a grill or in a hot smoker. What you yield from that is somewhat similar to the roasted garlic in that it's sort of caramelized, it's nutty, it's cooked a little bit, but it's taken on this very intense smoky flavor as well. How do you use it? Same as you would any other garlic. You can just peel from the clove, mash it, mince it up, toss it into a vinaigrette, marinade, etc., whatever, or use it to saute. But any garlic that's already been cooked, such as roasted garlic, black garlic, aged and dehydrated, confit garlic, or boiled garlic, obviously it's going to cook a lot faster. So if you're putting it into a saute, careful, because it will go very quickly. So I recommend putting it in at the end. All right, that was a lot about garlic, and we're going to do even more. Now we're going to answer your questions. So, hey, Terry, my daughter asked me to make her garlic and herb-infused oil. Please share ideas for creating this and storing it. She wants it as a Christmas gift. All right, so this garlic confit is one that would be really good. A note of caution here that garlic is a very much a danger for botulism, so you don't want to preserve garlic. As you in the oil, you want to. I mean, you wouldn't want to make it in airtight environment, because that is what leads to botulism. Just so something that will stay in the fridge, you're absolutely safe. You're good. Just tighten it as you would just a jar, and you're good. So doing a confit garlic like this with some hard herbs in it, throw 1 stalk of rosemary in, and maybe in the last 20 minutes or so of the cooking, or even just at the very end, and let the heat of the oil sort of pull out extract those rich oils as it cools down, would be perfect. Bay leaf, thyme, rosemary, etc. Throw some fennel seeds in there, and that will plump up in the oil. Woo! I mean, that's incredible. For just another oil, think about your sort of quick hit herbs, your soft herbs. So parsley, but garlic basil oil, or garlic parsley oil, etc. Tarragon is one of my very favorite. The keys to this are going to be to use an oil that it itself is not going to overpower. So if you want the fine, sensual nuance of tarragon, a rich, pungent, spicy olive oil is probably not the way to go. Use a blended oil, use a vegetable oil, etc. Something that is going to be neutral enough to let the flavors shine. I would try also the boiled garlic. Just boil it maybe once to take out a little bit of that bitterness, and that's going to yield you just a sweeter, softer. But really, after a week or two, your flavor is there. After a month, your flavor is, I think, really full, and ultimately they'll probably keep up to 2 or 3 months or so in the fridge, depending on the quality of the herbs. Soft herbs, a lot less time than hard herbs such as rosemary or thyme that obviously last longer. So, awesome. Thanks, Terry. All right. Malgorzata, hey, how are you? Malgorzata, I hope I got that right. Welcome. Nice to see you. Hello, Martin. I hope to know about more black aged garlic. Used it once blended with yogurt and spices. Ooh, great idea. Love the taste. Any advice how to use it in other ways? I really love that. That's awesome. So one thing about black garlic is that it's going to show up because it's black. So it's going to have a visual appearance. So if you blend it with yogurt, you're going to see little flecks of black, and that's fine. But just be aware of that going in. I love that idea of blending it with garlic, especially with yogurt, something like a labna, especially a really thick, heavy yogurt with a lot of that potent acidity to it. Black garlic, I made a black garlic butternut squash hummus once. That was radically incredible, awesome. The garlic and the squash and the smokiness, I roasted the squash in the embers of a wood fire, which was just, it was awesome. So black garlic and tahini work really, really well together. Black garlic and lime juice work incredibly well together, especially when paired maybe also with a little bit of fresh cilantro in there. Just use that as a sauce, or mince the black garlic, mix it with butter, lime juice, and cilantro, and make a compound butter that you can freeze. Yes, if you wrap it up enough, you can freeze that and it won't necessarily affect the rest of the things in your freezer. Other ways that I really love to use it. Yeah, so there you go. I mean, it's this incredible, wonderful ingredient. Try making a Caesar salad with it. Really, just any way that you can think to use regular garlic. You could use or roasted garlic, especially dishes that are already including that sort of further developed garlic flavor. Black garlic would be a great stand-in. Okay. Hey, thanks so much. All right, from Peter H. Let's see. Wow, we got a bunch of questions here. Should the green spouts be removed from garlic cloves? Some chefs suggest they impart a bitter flavor. Well, seems quite a bit of debate about this. So, in my opinion, yeah, they should be removed. Simply because, well, two reasons. Yes, they do have a different flavor. Is it so bitter that really warrants like a great deal of difficulty? No, I don't think so. Luckily enough, it doesn't require much effort at all. You cut the clove in half, and should it be there, you just take the tip of a knife and you just poke it right out, and there it is. It's done. It's gone. Another reason why that might be important is if you don't want any green to punctuate your dish. If you just want the white garlic or the brown, or the caramelized garlic, etc. But then there are these green parts. They're going to cook differently. It's a different texture, so it might brown a little bit easier. It might get more bitter, etc. So in that way, take out a variable, yeah, and just take it out. The other reason to, those are the reasons really to remove them, are just they're going to cook differently and maybe have a little bit of a different texture. But if you're just adding garlic into a Caesar salad and you're doing it like you're mincing it, whatever, or you're doing just a very quick saute where it's just all going in at the very end, or over roasted vegetables, no, there's no reason really to throw it out. No. If it's like this big, dude, Peter, I mean, if it's like sticking out and like waving at you and saying hello, don't use the garlic to begin with. You know why? It's because that new growth is feeding off of the bulb, right? And so the bulb is not going to be what you want it to be because it's already entered the biological phase of, ooh, let's grow something new. So don't use it if it's over the top. But if it's just, this little green bit on the inside like that, you're fine, man. You're fine. All right. Great question. Great question. From Leon. Hi, friends. Is there any way to keep minced garlic for a number of days? Years ago, I would keep it longer with using oil. This is a no-go in forks over knives, but it also seems to be dangerous concerning botulism. So if you're just keeping it in oil in the fridge for a couple of days, that's fine. You don't want to process it and put it in an anaerobic environment where it doesn't have any oxygen. Without oxygen, that's when the botulism grows, my understanding. But really, the mincing garlic is so quick and easy. I would just recommend getting a microplane. It is so quick. It is so easy. And unless you are mincing a gallon of garlic at a time, at which point maybe you should look into a larger industrial process, it's so easy. It's so quick. And garlic loses so much of its nuance and beauty and takes on really a very sort of nasty components to it. I mean, it just gets oxidized and to my opinion, just not worth using after a couple of days, especially after being minced, which is basically breaking as much of those cell walls as you can, the finer you cut it or grate it. So I would just say do it at the time that you're saving by doing it, ahead of time. I don't think is worth it in terms of the cost to your ultimate dish. So, hey, great question, Leon. Appreciate you. Thanks, buddy. From Judith, hi, friend. I know you grow many different varieties of garlic and in great quantities. What variety would you suggest to grow in a small home garden? Awesome. Great. So I would suggest 2 varieties. Judith, I forget exactly where you are located, but if I seem to remember that you're in a cooler climate, meaning you're not in Mexico or Sicily. I would recommend Music Garlic and German Extra Hardy. 2 varieties that I've found are very disease resistant. They're very easy to grow. They're very consistent in size and shape. Are also have pretty forgiving to amateur growers like myself, who is still learning. But they're also different enough. So this is a big clove of music. Music can have up to sort of 7 or so cloves. German Extra Hardy, maybe up to 5. This is one with 3. But they have different enough personalities that it's worth having the 2 of them. And you're going to get all the spice and sort of the muster that you want out of the music, and you're going to get all the nuance and beauty and elegance and flavor and ease of use out of the German Extra Hardy. So those are the 2 I'd recommend. They're very easily found online. Most good seed companies will have seed garlic. If you're in the north, I recommend Fedco or Johnny's seeds. Both here out of Maine are great. There's High Mowing Seeds, which is another one. Rare Seeds, which is also Baker Creek, is another great one. But really, if you just search out garlic, seed garlic, there's some really passionate people doing some really great stuff out there, and easily accessible. And now is the time to buy. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of varieties sold out in various places. So people are doing this. And so think about how many cloves you're going to want to end up with. You can't grow too much garlic. All right. So go overboard. And the bottom line is, if you buy too much seed garlic, which can be expensive, it's about $20 a pound, but for every pound of seed garlic, you're going to get 5 or 6 pounds, maybe more, of yield out of it. So it's a good investment. But if you end up with too much seed garlic, great. It's edible and delicious and useful, so it'll be in your kitchen. Awesome, Judith. Good to see you. From Tracy, I've heard black garlic from China is bleached prior to transport. Do you know anything about this and how to tell? I don't know that. I would imagine that it does go through some process, whether it's irradiation is what I imagine it might go through, or possibly a dip in a bleach solution that is food safe. And the reason for that is probably for bacteria transfer, not only to maybe extend the shelf life of the product at hand, but also just so that we're not importing potential agricultural pathogens into our country, so sort of killing anything that exists on the surface there. So I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised. And in fact, I would think that would probably be typical practice. Both are considered food safe and are widely accepted practices. So there you go. But I don't know. Good question, though, Tracy. Thank you. All right. How do you make great garlic toast without using oil? Thank you, Rachel. Great. So that goes back to the technique I was saying earlier. So toast your bread in the oven. Just dry toast it. Cut it on a long bias so it's got some great surface area to it. As soon as it comes out of the oven, as soon as it does, while it's still piping hot, you take your garlic, cut. So you want to have a good amount of surface area of the garlic, and just give it a couple of slides across there. The friction and the heat will extract the essential oils from the garlic and perfume the whole thing beautifully. You will never miss the oil. It is so good. Cool. From Dan. How are you picking up the pan from the toaster oven when it's 270 without a hot pad? Super hands. No, Dan, thank you for thinking of that. But no, it had actually been sitting there off for a while. It had been sitting. However, I wasn't sure when I reached over to grab it if it was going to be cool enough. So I was just going to play it cool. But luckily, I didn't have to. So, but thanks for your concern. I appreciate it, man. And thanks for paying attention to details. Love having you. I appreciate you being a part of the Ruby family. From Veronica, I love garlic and have always cooked with it. Woo! Was recently diagnosed with gastritis, and the doctor told me I have to stay away from it. Is there any other ingredient I can use as a substitute? Wow. Well, I'm sorry to hear of your diagnosis, but I'm also glad that you are on a path to wellness there, and you know what's ahead of you. Good for you. We support you in that. I am not an expert in this. I can't give you. I don't know what other foods might trigger symptoms or issues for you. But what are you looking for in garlic? Spice, pungency, background, foundational flavor, right? If you just saute zucchini, you got a pretty one-dimensional thing with the richness of the oil on it. Okay, great. If you add garlic in there, woo, okay, all of a sudden, this has some depth. This has some nuance. This has some real appeal to it, and it keeps every bite interesting, right? So spice, great. Substitute it maybe with a little bit of, well, just think black pepper or chili flake. You don't have to go spicy. I'm talking about spiced in the same way that hot chocolate can be spiced. It doesn't have to hurt. That's not the point. Just a little bit of something in there to give it that counterpoint, that piquancy, that pungency, just to set off sweetnesses, to set off richness. That's a good thing that garlic provides to a dish. What's another thing garlic provides to a dish? That sort of broad, pungent flavor. So think about maybe a spice mix like fennel seed and coriander pounded down into a fine powder. That will give some of that same sort of broad palate appeal. When to add it? You're doing sauteed zucchini. I just keep going back to that because, well, it's zucchini season and you can't stop eating zucchini. Add it in just at the very end. You want it to toast a little bit in the heat of the dish, but you don't want it to burn. So just at the very end, give it 10, 30 seconds of tossing in just to sort of bloom those aromas. That will sort of provide some of that same sort of broad palate. So the spice is sort of the up palate, back palate. That the seasoning spices will sort of provide that broad palate. And if you're looking for sweetness, which is another thing that garlic provides, onions. Onions provide a great deal of sweetness in the same way that garlic does, but also so do a number of things. Sherry vinegar, for example, especially a sweet one like made from Pedro Jimenez grapes. Something like that is going to add both that sort of up palate spice, but also that sort of pungency to help cut the richness, but also some sweetness. So there's a couple of ideas there based on sort of what garlic provides for a dish. Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate you. I wish you all the best. All right, from Estella. Hi, where can we purchase these wonderful garlic varieties and how can we get seeds to plant them? So again, I just mentioned a bunch of those, so please check out my neighbors, Fedco, FEDCO.com, Johnny's Seeds, High Mowing Seeds. I know that a lot of just like the Burpees, Gurneys, et cetera, sort of the big seed company catalogs do a great job with this, but really just put it into Google, seed garlic, and look around and just peruse the website. If the website there is obviously the project of somebody's passion and somebody's really putting themselves out there on this, which farmers tend to do, they tend to be very passionate about their product, then go for it and trust it. One thing I would say is look for product that has been certified safe, meaning it doesn't have any of the potentially very problematic issues with it, such as white mold or other things. And I know that Fedco, Johnny's, any reputable supplier is going to sell you great quality seed garlic. So, and how do you know they're reputable? If they put their face on there or sign anything with their name or tell you anything about who they are personally, they're standing behind their product. It's it's good to go. Awesome. All right, where do you buy the different types? Okay, just answered that. Pilar, hey, Pilar, nice to see you. Thanks for that question. Why does garlic turn greenish sometimes when you cook it, and how do you prevent it? Interesting question. So that is going to be a chemical reaction, typically of the sulfuric acid, I believe, or the allicin, which is another a very active chemical in garlic. And typically, I've seen that happen when it gets in contact with various metals. So I have a carbon steel knife here. This is an arm-murphy knife that I use for everything. And you can see that this metal reacts a lot as opposed to stainless steel, right? I do not cut garlic with this knife because the garlic tastes different instantly. I think garlic tastes differently when I use a stainless steel knife, but it doesn't. I think technically, chemically, from a chemistry standpoint, that's not true, but I think it does. So any metal is going to have some nature of interaction. And so it depends on, I think, the pan that you're putting it in. If you're cooking it there, can turn it green. But really what that is, I think more so than the pan or the cooking, turning it green is really going to be maybe the processing of the garlic ahead of time. And that can even happen, and I've seen it happen here on this cutting board, which is full of oils. And if you look at this thing, it's got all sorts of patina on it. Yeah, I wash it every day. But there's a lot of living stuff, not living stuff, I'd say, but there's a lot of chemical reaction that happens given your products. And some of that is also just the nature of the garlic itself. If it is particularly high in one chemical, and that's just due to the soil it was grown in, yeah, I've seen it turn green just by mashing it on the microplane, and exposure to air will do that. So there you go. Does it change the flavor? Yeah, very likely. To a point where I would say don't use it? No. Is it safe? Absolutely. All right, what about smashing with salt to make a paste from Ariel? Yes, absolutely. So if you're going to smash it with salt, that's a great way to get it. And the salt, what the salt does is it helps to absorb the juice and the oils that you smash out, that you push out of the garlic when you make a paste. And so you're getting more of that garlic flavor. Also, the friction of the salt helps to give the knife something to push against and sort of exfoliate or rake through the garlic. I also tend not to do that, though, because you've just made a giant puddle of very potent garlic oil that's now going to soak into your cutting board if you're not using a non-porous one. So for me, I don't tend to do that. I think that a microplane does a better job giving you a pure garlic flavor. But great question. Hey, thanks, Ariel. Am I whole foods plant-based? If so, for how long? From Davey. No, I am not. I am an omnivore. Mostly vegetarian, really. I eat very little meat. I eat a lot of seafood, though. Very small portions of it, but very often it is kind of my business. It is what I do. It is my passion in life. But for all intents and purposes, otherwise, I am very, very much vegetarian. I would say vegetarian cuisine makes up about 90% of the calories and of my meals. So there you go. Hey, thanks, Davey. Appreciate it. From Sylvia, let the chefs at the workshop know that the green germ in the garlic clove should be removed. Okay, so we talked through that. There's a number of thinking on either side of that. And yeah, hey, thanks for your input. Appreciate it, Sylvia. From Madani, hi, Barton. I live up in frozen Ottawa. Hey there, friend. Will that method, planting in October, work for our climate as well? Yes, it should. I mean, here in Maine, we got bitter winters, man. And garlic grows very well here and in northern climes all over the world. The key to it is going to be protecting it over the winter. And the way to do that is burying it deep. So in California, you might get away with burying it 3 inches deep. In Ottawa or Maine, you go 5 or 6 inches down into the ground in loose soil. Cover it over in October, late October. You don't want to go too early, because if you go too early when the soil is still able to sort of activate the garlic is going to start to grow up. And as it grows up, it basically gets more susceptible to freeze, right? So and garlic can take quite a bit of freezing. I mean, it will be above the ground here in April when we still get very hard freezes, not frosts. I mean, we'll get a hard freeze and the garlic will be fine. But you don't want to put it through a negative 30-degree Ottawa winter. That would be too much. The thing to do would be to cover it with several inches, maybe even near a foot of just organic matter. Rake up your maple leaves, because I know you have maple leaves, right? Right, Manani? I know you've got them. I know you've got a lot of them up there. So just rake up all your maple leaves and put a big, thick, dense bed of those on top, and that just acts as a thermal blanket, helps to protect them, and just make sure up in the spring that after you get, in past the thaw, into the thaw, that you remove those, give the garlic a chance to grow up and out, and you should be fine. But buy hardneck garlic from a northern source, okay? I forget the name of it, but there's some great companies up in Canada that are selling in Canada. I don't think that we can trade across the border here, so those I mentioned earlier probably wouldn't be good. But any in Canada selling to a Canadian farmer is going to have varieties not only that are just basically good for cold weather climates, but that seed stock itself is going to be likely coming from Ottawa. And so it's going to be sort of individually adapted for your climate. So there you go. Good reason to follow local agriculture. All right, Madani, hey, great question. Thank you. From Adela again, hey, we enjoy eating the garlic greens when growing our own. Any thoughts or comments on cooking with eating them? Yeah. Well, as you know, you get a lot of them. So throw them into everything. I throw them into pesto, make a pesto of its own. I throw them into whatever sort of saute I'm doing, gumbos, etc. I use them in place of celery in terms of like a mirepoix. You can make a delicious potato leek soup with them. Just replace the leeks completely with the garlic scapes. That's a good way to use up several pounds of garlic scapes at once, if you're like me and have way too many. It makes a delicious chilled soup on its own, especially when you simmer it down for a good while. It loses all that pungency and becomes sweet. There's also a really great broth in the south of France called aigo bolido, A-I-G-O. Next word, B-O-U-L-I-D-O, aigo bolido, which is basically boiled garlic. It's leeks, garlic, bay leaf, thyme, water, and black pepper that's simmered down together for about 25 minutes. Oftentimes butter or olive oil is added, and it's this wonderful broth, and it makes this incredible base for like a noodle soup, etc. Poaching an egg in it. Oh, it's wonderful. There you go. All right, from Abby, just two more questions to go here. I've seen elephant garlic in my local supermarket. Provide any insight on what that is and how to use it. Abby, I actually don't know much about elephant garlic other than that it is nearly a completely different sort of culinary beast in that it's not spicy at all. I mean, it's also huge. This would be like 4 cloves. I've selected my garlic out, and I've got really great soil, so mine grow very big. But elephant garlic, I believe, is actually a leek, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a different member of the allium family. It has similar characteristics in the sweetness, some aroma to it. It's really great for roasting, but I think it's different enough that I wouldn't even sort of use it in the same ways. So it's really great roasted and spread on bread or paired with cheeses, etc. It's a fabulous ingredient. But you know what? I haven't really used much of it because, sort of early on, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I sort of decided that it was garlic for people that don't like garlic, and I like garlic. So that's not to put it down. It's just to say that I've never allowed myself to be a fan of it, but I'm sure it is good. All right, from Shelly, live in Hawaii where it's warm all year round. Lucky you. I find that onions and garlic that I buy at the markets are quick to rot, usually from the center. Yep. It's just because of the heat during the growing process. Probably for a couple of reasons. Yes, heat. Just the warmer something is, the more active its cellular process is going to be, the more the bulb is thinking that it is in grow mode, go time. If you bring it down to 40 degrees, 50 degrees, then it sort of puts it into a biological sort of stasis, a chemical stasis, if you will. I mean, not entirely, but what happened there? It puts it into a bit of a stasis a little bit, so it just kind of hibernates it, if you will, not stasis. So yeah, I think just warmer climates, because it was probably never chilled and during the curing process. There's also greater moisture. Just the warmer the air is, the more moisture there's going to be in it. Moisture hastens the growth of rot and bacteria, etc. So like everything else, preserving things in warmer climates is harder than it is in colder climates. So there you go. But you also have the advantage of being able to have multiple seasons of onions, spring garlic and fall garlic, etc. So you get a little bit more leeway there. Hey, there you go, Shelly. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. All right, last question from Beerticon. Hi, Chief. Any garlic effect for health? Yeah, when I cook, I use more. I like it, absolutely. So garlic is considered very good for our health from the allicin in it, A-L-L-I-C-I-N, not a woman's name, allicin. Very powerful antioxidant properties to garlic. Just a whole host of micronutrients, nutrients as well. And you know what? Garlic makes all other vegetables taste better and just makes dishes more complete to me, which makes you eat more of them, right? So you're going to get better nutrition out of everything else. Why? Because you just enjoy it more. And I do believe maybe it's not scientifically accurate to say that if you enjoy your food, it's going to sustain you better. But yeah, I'm just going to go out on my limb and say it will. And hey, I enjoy you. I enjoy these events. I enjoy your company, your questions, your curiosity. And I love the fact that you love other people, as is proven by the fact that you love cooking for them. So with that, I will say bon appetit. My house smells incredible like garlic. We're going to eat a whole lot of different things tonight. I wish you all the best. Please join us back here again anytime. Be well, friends.